Hello, welcome back. It's week 66 on Out on That Line. I'm Geoff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
Geoff, I'm all revved up and I got one place to go, and that is straight into the belly of the podcast.
Hell yeah, I'm ready to ride, baby. We have I thought, a pretty good album this week. We'll see what you think about it, but we're going to talk about Spoon's new album, Lucifer on the Sofa. Came out just a couple weeks ago, February 11th, and Austin, local band, so I was already kind of taking a shine to them, but we'll get into that a little later. There are some tours coming up, Alex. There's some big time tours that I think we need to let the people know about.
A couple friends of the show, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Strand of Oaks just announced a tour today being Wednesday. Hopefully you figured it out, but they are playing in Burlington. For those of you in Vermont, they are playing in Burlington. Coheed and Cambria announced another tour. They're on one currently, but it's all the small club shows around the country. Nowhere close to where I am, so we couldn't go see them. But they're going to do a big time stadium tour going through the summer. That shit is going to rock.
This is maybe a stupid question and may only be applicable to people who've ever seen a concert in Vermont. Has Coheed ever played Higher Ground?
Oh, yeah.
Have they really?
Oh, yeah. A lot.
No shit. For those of you who don't live in Burlington, Vermont, it's not the biggest venue on the planet. But, I mean, we saw Against Me there. We saw Dropkicks there. So, acts do come through.
Yes. And apparently Higher Ground is super popular with a lot of musicians. I think because it is a little bit smaller. The setup, I think, is super easy for them to get in and out.
Mm-hmm.
The stage is big.
Yep.
So, there's plenty of room compared to probably a lot of other places. But it's, I think, a perfect kind of venue for someone like Strand of Oaks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's the perfect kind of music that it's go get a beer, come back. The crowd isn't nobody's all over on top of each other. It's not like a Coheed show when you get up towards the front. It's everybody gets their space, but it's a fun time. I certainly recommend going to check out Strand of Oaks when they come through Burlington.
I would love to. If I'm still here when that happens, I would absolutely love to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, just such a fun concert to have a few beers, catch a little buzz, just a good time.
Have a $9 beer or two.
Yeah, why not? Know? Is that how much they are at Higher Ground now?
I don't know. I don't drink. I just say that.
Yeah. I mean, they were always more expensive than other places, but you were a pretty captive audience at that point.
That was just one of my favorite lines from the 40-Year-Old Virgin. They're at the club and someone's like, "Wow, a lot of people here." And Paul Rudd goes, "Yeah, it's $9 beer night." I just remember that popped me. Not even being a beer drinker, I just thought that was very funny.
Well, it's just, when it comes to sarcasm, there's few that do it better than Paul Rudd.
You don't beat the Rudd.
Yeah, you just don't. You can't. How do you do it?
You don't tug on Superman's cape, and you sure don't mess around with Paul Rudd.
No, you can't do it. You can't do it. Well, that's all the announcements that I had. I don't know if you had any that you wanted to bring up before we dive on into the Spoon.
I think maybe off the top it's good to plug, because we usually save it for the end, but I think off the top we should plug the YouTube with our custom URL,
good
which
idea.
Is not what I said last week. It is different. But to be fair to me, I don't think anyone is going to listen to it and immediately type it in. What you can do is go to @OutOnThatLine on Instagram, where it's right in our bio. You click on through. It's the Instagram to YouTube pipeline. You subscribe. You make sure your notifications are turned on. We got videos coming out of our asses over there. We got reaction videos and singles hanging from the rafters. It's a wild time. We picked up 20 new people last week alone. So it is a rocket ship, and you do not want to miss your ride, because Bezos and Branson will leave you behind. But Out on That Line, we'll never forget where we came from, and we'll never forget you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really nice. I forgot that I was a co-host for a second. I was just I felt like what the listeners must have felt like when they hear that.
No, I felt like wonderful. I was hovering above my body.
That was some Herb Brooks and Miracle type of shit.
This is our time. Oh, fucking A.
Well, I think right now it's Spoon's time.
I think so.
As we dive right into Lucifer on the Sofa, the new album from Austin local Spoon. Now, were you familiar with Spoon before this?
I would not say intimately, but yes. The Spoon that I heard,
Okay.
Hot Thoughts, I really liked a lot. It was more like experimental art rock.
Hmm.
But and you know me, I love the weird shit, so I really enjoyed what I had heard before. What about you?
I had listened to maybe a couple songs, but certainly never spent any significant amount of time listening to them. But having listened to this album, that's probably going to change because it just, I don't know, it really struck a chord with me that they did a lot of weird stuff. You know, they got very experimental. There was some like electric light orchestra that I heard on this album. There was some Pink Floyd that I heard on this album. Like it was some Flaming Lips. I mean, there was
Mm-hmm.
just some very varied influences. And I really, really enjoyed what I heard for the majority of this album. You know, there's a couple spots that kind of lulled a little bit, but overall, you know, I thought I really liked this one. I'll go back to it.
Oh, Tanner, you're gonna hate me, buddy, but I enjoyed this album. I'll never forget sticking the dagger in his heart with Bleachers.
Yeah.
Dude, and going into this, because he texted me after he listened to this album, and he was like, oh my God, dude, I'm having like a Spoon revelation. I think this might be my Mitski, because I've been annoying the piss out of everyone with Mitski.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think this might be my Mitski. And I'm like, well, okay, well, there's a lot riding on this. If I listen to this and I don't like it, I have to leave the country. So mercifully, I enjoyed it. I will say off the top, there's no way I could have enjoyed it as much as Tanner. And I'm not even doing it as a bit. Like he just like loves the shit out of this.
Mm-hmm.
He's wild about it. And I totally get it. This is a weird thing for me, but it's almost because it's such a tightly written, well executed album that goes right in the pocket. It's kind of hard to critique it or get too jacked up about it, because you talk about they were doing some weird stuff compared to the stuff I heard on Hot Thoughts. This
Mm-hmm.
feels kind of pulled back, which isn't a bad thing. It's just like, you know, it's their 10th LP. You got to try something a little different. And the big
Yeah.
thing that they tried different on this was they wanted to record as much of it as possible live instead of doing it in pieces in the studio like they had, where they kind of stitched a
Mm-hmm.
song together. They wanted as much of it to capture a concert feel as possible, which you can tell. It sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the richness and the fullness of a concert experience. So A+ on that. So it's not like, oh, I didn't like it or it wasn't good. It's just going to be kind of difficult for me to talk about because nothing blew my hair back, which again
Mm-hmm.
is not a comment on the quality of the thing. It's solid. But there was just like when something kind of ticks all the boxes but doesn't go out of its way for extra credit, it's hard to say other than like, wow, you nailed it. Which I know sounds
Yep.
shitty, but I mean it as a compliment, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because I mean I won't say that there's any parts of this album that like totally blew my mind at all, but it was just like you were saying, very tight, very well written, very well constructed. It was interesting. You know, I don't think they broke new ground.
No.
You know, I think this is kind of, I guess, like I don't want to say it's totally like the Dirty Honey album where it was like a fresh take on stuff we've heard before, I guess is kind of a good way to put it. But it's like, it really, you know, it did a lot for me because it was just a fun album to listen to. But I can see what you're saying where there's not one part that you're like, oh my God, this is the most, I'm not going to run to the top of the mountain and start shouting about how great it was. But I really enjoyed my time spent listening to it. You know, so there is that in between like not liking something and not being like insanely enthusiastic about it.
I was completely satisfied. It's
Mm-hmm.
like getting, again, this is going to sound shitty, but it's like going to a restaurant and getting a nice, juicy, unadorned cheeseburger, piece of yellow American cheese on it, tomatoes, lettuce, ketchup and mustard, nice sesame seed bun, just right there. Spoon is extremely reliable. The thing you can count on them to always do is have bangers from, I'm talking like an expert, but from what I've gathered off Hot Thoughts anyway, and the other stuff I've listened to, you can rely on them putting in some real bangers. And you can rely on some clunkers, which this album unfortunately had its share of them, but nothing that diminishes the overall quality of the experience, obviously. It was reliable, it was satisfying, it's short, it doesn't overstay its welcome. I really can't think of anything bad to say about it, but at the same time, it's not like my Mitski, where I just shit myself because I was so in love.
Yeah. And I think it's, I don't know, we'll get into it. We'll start getting into the specific songs, but I think part of the issue is, the lyrics are really fine. They flow very well in the music, but when you read them and you really try to pull something out of them, there didn't seem to be a lot there to pull. I mean, it wasn't at like Foo Fighters level of, kind of unintelligible, but it just seemed like there was a lot of stuff that sounded good when sung together, but not that it really had a lot of cohesive, kind of tendrils running through it.
Well, and I will say to that effect, again, it's all going to sound like slams. I'll just stop trying to qualify it. Please believe me. I liked it. But to me, I think the thing that kept me from connecting with the lyrics more is they didn't feel personal. They were telling stories, they were telling interesting stories, but they didn't. I didn't feel like Britt Daniel in his delivery, because he's got a great voice, got a great delivery, but it didn't feel like a very intimate connection to the things that were being sung about, which is fine. Not every song has to do that, but if we are trying to evaluate lyrics on a case-by-case basis, they were not bad lyrics. Like you said, they flowed, they were fun, they were interesting, but I wasn't like arrested by much of the imagery. I wasn't like knocked down by a certain swell of emotion. It was, again, this is a solid, reliable, inoffensive, very articulate album. It's not going above and beyond the Call of Duty.
Yes. And so we each chose our customary 3 songs. The first one was one of your picks, The Hardest Cut.
Did you watch the music video for this one?
I did not. I didn't watch any music videos for this one. I just listened to this probably 4 times, I think is how many times I went through this album.
Okay. It's interesting. It's bookended by like a kind of slasher theme. And it's fun, and I think the video honestly to me enhanced my enjoyment of the song, cuz the first couple times I listened to it I'm like, "Oh, this is a hard, heavy song again, like a song like an Old Spoon song like Do You is and it's all dreamy and wacky and great stuff." I was like, oh shit, this is like a pretty heavy Spoon rock song, nice Texas inspired riff. I guess if I do have one criticism of it, it felt like it never got out of first gear in terms of like on a dynamic level. It's mixed perfectly. This entire album is mixed expertly. Fucking A. But there was something about the overall shape that this took that didn't feel as fleshed out as maybe I wanted. And then they get into this like Captain Beefheart-esque guitar solo, and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. It's got the kind of that pang, pang, pang guitar that was prevalent in a lot of Beefheart stuff. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. And then it just ends immediately, and I was like, oh. So again, the stuff that the song does very well, I was like, yeah, give me more of that. And it's a heavy fucking song. It's well made. There was just one little thing that prevented me from like really kind of enshrining this, and it was the fact that it kind of just seemed to, I don't want to say one note, because it's not one note. It's a very full, interesting song, but it just didn't reach the heights that I think I was expecting when it started, if that makes sense.
And yeah, I got kind of like Arctic Monkeys vibe from them, not just from this song. There was a couple points on the album, so it's like they definitely have, and they've been around just as long, if not longer, than the Arctic Monkeys. So I don't know if they're probably just influenced by the same kind of music. It's just, that's what happens. But I got very much like that kind of almost garage rock sort of sound to it, where it's some interesting, like, not different time signatures, but interesting like syncopations they use within the structure of the of the beat. And it struck me very much like how the Arctic Monkeys do it. Now that's to say that that's something I enjoyed about what Spoon was doing, because that's, I like listening to the Arctic Monkeys when they get a little heavier, because I think that's when they're just like the most fun to listen to.
Yeah.
And I liked the songs that I really liked on this, for the most part, were ones that were along this same vein, where they were kind of playing the rock band and not necessarily doing the really like Flaming Lips type of stuff, the kind of acoustic, weird, kind of really dreamy sort of stuff. And, the songs that I picked, I think you'll see that that's kind of how I leaned on this.
Mm-hmm.
But The Hardest Cut was a good song. Like, to me, this was one of my better ones on the album because of how heavy it was. I just enjoyed the music of it.
Yeah, and despite me being like, this is probably the most critical I'm going to be of the songs we discuss, because again, it's not like, ooh, it's bad. I thought of a disgusting analogy, if you'd like to hear it.
Yes, of course.
I would liken this song to, you're in bed and you're masturbating and it feels really good. And you're like, yeah, ooh, I like this. Ooh, this is a sexy thought. Yeah. Oh, no, I thought about grandma.
Oh, God.
And then you're like, fuck, and you have to try to get it back. You're like, yeah, okay, here we go. We're cooking again. Oh, this feels good. This is weird. Oh, God damn it. So, which sounds harsh. But what I mean is there were little ideas in the song where I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to go somewhere crazy. And then it just didn't. So I kind of got a little bit of blue balls, but it's still masturbation. You're still having fun. Like, when it's all over, you still had a good time.
You did. You landed the plane. Oh, brother.
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Yep.
Wow.
You knew who you were starting a podcast
Yeah,
with.
I did. I knew. All right. Well, the next song, this one was one of my picks, The Devil and Mr. Jones. And this one I really liked because it had that kind of like dirty, grungy kind of feel to it. That's what I really liked about this one. I felt like I was at like one of those really hole in the wall type of Austin bars over like on the east side, like east of 35. Just hearing a band that's like been doing this for years, and all they're there to do is just like make themselves feel better. Don't really care what the audience has to say, because man, this song just gave me those like spooky, almost like Fleetwood Mac, like sort of witchy vibes to it. It was very good. I like this one a lot.
I hear Black Keys. I hear Dr. Dog. Weirdly enough, I hear a lot of ZZ Top and Queens of the Stone Age throughout the entire album. Not necessarily on this song, because this was way more soulful and bluesy. This is a fucking great song. The mixing's perfect. It's got more of a sense of fun that I think I wanted out of The Hardest Cut, where it's got this kind of like mischievous, like you say, kind of spooky sound to it. There's dreamy elements sprinkled into a like rockabilly blues kind of sensibility. The pre-chorus into the chorus is so simple and so seamless and so satisfying. I mean, it's a lyrically simple devil shit song, right? But it again, it's like right in that pocket. You're not trying to do too much. You're not giving us nothing to hang our hat on. It's a good, long, meaty song. It's got that sweaty, sultry, hellbound, bluesy sound. I enjoyed the fuck out of this to the point where I was like, God damn it, Geoff, when you picked it before I could pick it. It's a great song. Potentially my favorite.
I got my picks in on a Tuesday.
You sure did. Friday on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yep. I went through, I had listened to it a couple times, and then I listened to it while I mowed the lawn one more time, and that's what locked it in. I was like, whatever ones make me like really get on the saddle and get this lawn done, those are the ones I'm going to pick. And that's how I kind of made my decision.
Yeah, no, this was a good pick. This was a great one. I enjoyed it quite thoroughly.
Yes. And the next one, I think nope. I was going to say, I don't know if we've ever gone like one and then one and then one and then one, like alternating picks. And I was like, we might have done it this time, but nope. It's not the case. Maybe next time, listeners. Get excited for it. But the next one is Wild, is one of your picks.
I like, one of my favorite things that I've brought up a million times is when a song can match the emotion, the feeling with what's being done in the music. And this is a song that does that in a very simple way. It's got these really cool piano riffs and this like ultra crisp drumming, and the drumming, you're like very aware of it in the verses where it's about being flattened by modernity, and then the chorus kicks in and it's these howling vocals. It's the wild life, it's the natural life, echoes of what we talked about last week with Big Thief.
Mm-hmm.
It's the natural world calling to you, and it just explodes. It's like a wolf howl. And I think there's a great dynamic between the verse being very contemplative and that wild, restless chorus. It did a great job of not, like, I don't know if you heard the new Illuminati Hottie Sandwich Sharer.
No.
There's some interesting time signature switch up there that threw me for a loop, and it's like kind of jarring in a good way, but it's kind of what Sarah Tudson does best, is just kind of knock you for a loop. And this song didn't do that. It was like very pleasant, seamless transition from feeling to feeling. And I just appreciate when a song can be interesting and stick the landing like that.
Yes. And this one was very close to being one of my picks. Because I think overall the lyrics were some of the best on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just because the other picks I had, I just kind of liked the melody and the lyrics together more. This one just fell out of that top 3 for me, but they have some, like, the chorus is very simple. In the world still so wild, called to me, I was lost, I'd been kept on my knees. Then in the second chorus, I'd been caught, I was lost on my knees. They just kind of switched up a little bit, but I really like when bands do that, when it's still the same theme, and it's still the same chorus, like the melody's all the same, but you change the lyrics a little bit. I think it's an interesting way, because I think your natural thought is that the chorus is something that's repeated word for word a couple times in the song, is kind of the general idea of what we hear in pop music for the most part. But it's nice when they make those subtle changes to help kind of advance whatever sort of narrative they have going in the song. Whether it's a new emotional discovery they made, something, betrayal, whatever it might be, they change that lyric a little bit so it changes. When you hear it the second time, you're like, oh, this is a different feeling I'm supposed to have right here.
Yeah, and it just does that so successfully. Again, take a bite of that juicy burger. You won't be disappointed. It doesn't have fucking fried onion strings and a peanut butter and a jalapeno pepper on all this weird shit. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but that's not a backhanded compliment. Sometimes you just want to sit down and have a fucking American-ass cheeseburger with some fucking fries on the side, and miss me with that steak fry bullshit. Miss me with the shoelace fries. Give me French fries right in the fucking pocket, and that is what Wild serves up to you, is a complete meal.
Preach, brother.
There we go. That's my feeling.
Yes. Now the next one, My Babe. Now this is probably the lightest weight song that I chose, but I don't know. I think it was just the way that My Babe came out in the chorus, like the way that line got sung. It was just such a catchy thing to me. It was just an earworm. And I kept having to go back to this song because it just like struck me. I don't really have any deep thoughts about it, about the structure of it or anything like that. It's just the song that I think got into my ears, and it was like, we're going to nestle in nice here and we're going to stay right here.
And for me, part of what was so pleasant about it is it sounded like the Spoon that I was exposed to, that I really enjoyed. Because when Tanner was having his Spoon revelation, he was like, oh, this is fucking great. Like, what else have you heard? I was like, I think Hot Thoughts is a really cool album. It's the only one, again, that I've really listened to in any kind of comprehensive way. And I liked those art rock elements of it. And those are present here. They kind of, especially with the structure, it's like the refrain kicks it off. And then there are these mellow moments with these kind of bright bursts in the chorus. The drums ride right through the thing. The guitar is nice and crispy. Again, we have to shout out the mixing. It is perfect. It's so perfect, and that is such a talent, because when you hear something that's shittily mixed, once you key in on it, it's like when you listen to a podcast and someone's talking. This is such a random thing, but I was listening to an old podcast where two guys were talking. The one guy goes on a rant, and the other guy every 10 seconds goes, yeah, right, yeah, right, yeah, Right. And when I keyed in on it, I was like, fuck, I'm going to crash my car in protest. You can become very aware of something that sucks and then you can't let it go. And you will never have that problem with Spoon. They took the time to get this tight.
Yeah. And I wonder if they do most of that work themselves or if they just found a producer that was capable of that. I'll have to look into that. I imagine a band that's been around as long as they have, and typically when someone is as experimental as they have been, you know your way around a studio as well, because you got to find, sometimes you might be the only people that know what you're trying to hear. You know, so I would give them some credit on that. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, My Babe, for me, I think that was my favorite. Like one of the top ones. The Devil and Mr. Jones probably takes it, but I think My Babe was like right up there. And I don't know why. It was just like had that kind of weird pop fringe kind of sensibility to it. It was just a very, very nice experience.
Yeah. Yep. I would agree with you. Devil and Mr. Jones is my runaway favorite, but this was a goodie, as is the next one.
Yes. So on the radio, the next pick, the riff in this one. That was what got me, and how they kept going back to it. And it almost, I wanted more of it, but I felt like at the end I was like, no, that was the perfect amount. But every time I listened to it, I'm like, oh, I wish they went through that one more time. But then you get to the end, you're like, nope, that was good. But it's every time you listen to it, and it's just as good every time.
I really appreciate on this one tons of musical elements to love, but the germ of the appeal to me is it's a very simple story about how Britt Daniel felt as a youngin' when his world was very small, but he had a radio beside his bed, and that was a portal to not just the outside world, but worlds within worlds, as they say in Community. The radio was the nexus of exploration, different kinds of music, different kind of personalities. I can see, like, I would have to agree when I think about it that it's kind of a magic thing. I remember right after my parents got divorced and my mom and I and my sister moved into a new place and we were renting it and it just didn't feel like home. We'd been in this place, this other like cool house forever. And it's like, now we're living in this place. This is just weird. I don't know how to handle this. But I had a little clock radio next to the bed and I had it tuned to 107.1. And they would just, I would
Back
just,
when it was Work FM.
Work FM, baby. I would just let that shit ride. It was great. Like it was before I was old enough to never be able to get out of my head. The radio was able to kind of take me away from my troubles for a minute. And that's what this song is. It's a nostalgic ode to the magic of something that can take you away like that. And it's nostalgic without being like a fucking parody, you know? Like there's a lot of moments in this. There are a lot of songs on this album that feel like they could have come out in the 90s and they would have fucking dominated the airwaves. But they never slip over into like a tongue-in-cheek parody. This is just a song about personal comfort and the experience of a little guy who's got nothing but the radio to show him a bigger world. And like, I haven't even gotten into the musical part of it. I got to shut the fuck up for a minute and let you talk. But I don't know. I'm excited about it. It's another thing where I'm like, you nailed the concept here.
Yeah. And I love this concept. Strand of Oaks has a song called Radio Kids off the Hard Love album. That is fantastic, but it's this exact same sensibility. You know, it's like when you're young and you don't have, like nowadays, you know, you have the internet, Spotify, you have access to every kind of music you can think of whenever you want it. Back then, that wasn't the case. It was, you had to listen to 107.1 Work FM and like the Saturday night dance party or whatever they called it. And what was it? Friday night request line.
I forget Friday, but it was open house party.
Yes, that's what, open house party. That's what it was. And you call in request songs. And I remember I called in requested Wild Wild West one time.
Did they play it?
They sure did.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, what a rush. I must have been like 12 or 13. I was sitting on, I think my dad was in the, picking up subs from Simply Subs or something. So I was just in the car. Oh yeah, Simply Subs.
Back before they fell the fuck off. You had yourself
Yeah, oh my
night.
God. Back in those days, whew, buddy. Once they started doing the pizza, The subs fell off.
Oh yeah, big
I
time.
think is what happened. But I remember calling in while he was in there on his cell phone because he left it in there because I had like some poker game or something I played on it. I called in and the guy was like, yeah, no one's requested that one tonight. Good pick. And it came on like a few songs later. And I was freaking out. I was like, Dad, I requested this one. And he tried to act excited for me, but I know he didn't give a shit.
Oh, shit. He's a good man.
Yeah, but that was back in the day. That's what you had. You took your cassette tape and waited for your song to come on, pop that on there to make your mixtape. And you better like be quick on that trigger. And you always have like a bit of the advertisement.
Yeah.
That came just before the song leading into it. Oh man, those were the days. And that's the nostalgic feeling that this song gave me. And it didn't need to have like Springsteen level lyrics. It didn't need to have like Bob Dylan level lyrics.
Right.
It just needed to serve the feeling. And it did perfectly. All it needed to convey was that I have this nostalgic feeling about the radio because that was my window into the world. And it was just like executed just perfectly.
It's such a relatable thing too. Like even if you don't have necessarily like an emotional attachment to the radio, you have an experience with it one way or another. You got a song on it. That's magical. You won a contest. It's magical. We got to be on the radio in high school. We were doing Beauty and the Beast. They brought us in. They're like, what's it like doing Beauty and the Beast? We're like, it's really fun. Rip, bleed, demon, potato bug. Like, whatever. Like, the radio is a magical thing. And it's, been supplanted by assholes like us doing podcasts and Spotify and stuff like that. But there was a time when, you had these disc jockeys who could just curate an experience for you every night, all night. And I think that's cool. This is a cool ode. I'm not criticizing Billy Joel and scenes from an Italian restaurant, but it doesn't slip.
Not.
No, fuck no. It doesn't slip into like, remember those days hanging out on the Village Green? Of course we do. They were phenomenal. But the song doesn't even have to invoke that. It's just like, again, aided by, my favorite thing, aided by the music. It's this indie blues adjacent, very dreamy rock, incorporates a lot of stylistic flourishes for one song. I love the dark, like the only thing I could describe it as was like a dark voodoo piano riff. Very tasty, very tasty. This song is trying to do a lot of things. So for as much as the hardest cut kind of rested on its laurels for me, this song was not content. It was giving you as much variety in this song as you would get on the radio, if you will.
Excellently stated. Now we'll wrap it up. We have the last pick from the album. Your final pick, Satellite.
I am a big-time sucker for Satellite songs. Guster, Satellite.
Yep.
Lou Reed, Satellite of Love. Elvis Costello, Satellite. Phoebe Bridgers, Chinese Satellite.
Coldplay?
No.
Don't lie.
Not a Coldplay guy. Which one's
This is
Satellite?
a safe space.
Which one's Satellite by Coldplay?
I think it's literally called Satellite or Satellites.
What does it sound like?
I'm not going to try to sing it. This isn't that kind of podcast, but let me look it up because I'm pretty. If I'm wrong, I'm going to look really bad. But
are you thinking of DMB? Are you thinking of Dave? His friends call him Dave.
I mean, he has one too.
I do not like that Satellite song. I think it sucks. But
why can't I just see the singles? Spotify singles. Nope, that's not it. Well, I guess I'm going to have to just look this up. But I swear, maybe if I just search Coldplay Satellite.
Well, allow me to expound upon how much the DMB Satellite song sucks. They used it in a wine commercial, and I was like, God damn it, every time you're trying to sell Under the Table and Dreaming Wine or whatever horseshit this is, I gotta hear this fucking song? God damn it. It's like getting trapped under a wicker couch on the porch during a hot summer night while your parents are having sex on top of it. It's just like the trauma that I experience having to listen to that stupid song. There are a handful of Dave Matthews songs that I think are essential, that rock. Satellite, so far from the top of that list. so far.
Do you remember the song "Too Much" by Dave Matthews Band?
You have to remind me for that one too.
It's basically the chorus. I think is like, I drink too much, I smoke too much, but it's like everybody's telling me parties too much. But the video is like very weird. There's a guy with like a very weirdly like face like makeup, like very weird thing going on, but it's just like a weird experience. And I was very young when I saw that on MTV, and I was like, this song is cool. I don't know about this video though. Kind of freaks me out.
Yeah. Did you what'd you dig up on Coldplay?
So I think I was thinking of the song "A Sky Full of Stars," because I
Ah,
think satellites are mentioned quite a bit in that one.
gotcha. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that I'm sorry, unfortunately does not qualify. Satellite does not appear anywhere in the title. That's a chunky.
We're nearly there.
We got it. We brought it back around. Got out of that one. Yeah, I'm a sucker for satellite songs. I don't know why that is. I just think, again, the four that I listed are. I mean, you can argue with me on the Guster one. A lot of people think Guster's bullshit. I happen to
No, I like Guster.
adore Guster. Yeah,
Yeah, I like Rocket Ship.
Tanner
Great
and
song.
I have seen them like 3 times, I think now.
Oh yeah.
Great stuff. I love Guster. I love Lou Reed. I love Elvis Costello. I love Phoebe Bridgers. All gave me great satellite songs. And this one, the first time I listened to it, I was like, ooh, maybe my streak is over. I don't know how I feel about this. But when I listened to it again, I was like, no, this is nice. This is bluesy, but it's got that art rock flourish that I like from Spoon. It's very spacey, which is obviously appropriate. And the cleanliness of the sound, the crispness that it appears on some of the like really rock driven tracks, they kind of tone that down here and let the song be a little greasy. And I like that. I love the distortion on the guitar. It's very appropriate. I like the way that the different tones in the song harmonize with each other. It's one of those things the first time you don't pick up on it, but your brain does. It really fleshes out the guitar, the way that those different tones sit behind it. I don't know. I came around big time on this song.
Yeah, I like this one pretty well right from the start. I mean, I don't know, it just was a very soothing song. To me, it was one that, when you're listening to it, it's like it was constructed very well. And for a song to be like a little bit on the lower key side, it has to be mixed really well. You have to have some kind of fullness to that sound. If you're not going to have a lot of energy in the beat and stuff like that, you got to have some fullness to that sound to have it really be captivating. And I really felt like this one did a great job with that. I think listening to it, especially on headphones, there's a lot of little things they do in the background that helps back up the things that are in the foreground. And I think that's the difference between a band that, really knows how to construct an album and construct a song, and somebody that just happened to get lucky and write a good song a few times. It's somebody that really knows that it's a process of building it and putting the things on that are right for it and leaving things off that are wrong for it. And I think it's a good thing when you can take a song like this and leave it alone the way that they did.
To quote dear sweet Matt Reno,
Oh God.
Spoon and this album are rock solid. It's just at this point, I mean, they formed in 93? At this point, Spoon just knows what to do, and they really don't fuck with the formula. They're very consistent on an album-to-album basis, because like this wasn't a paradigm shift. It's just, again, from the Spoon that I've consumed, this was noticeably different and not what I expected when Tanner was freaking out. I was like, oh, maybe they're doing the weird stuff again. And I walked into it and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is not quite what I expected. But at the same time, it's a great thing because you kind of got to liven it up a little bit. Don't change what's working, but keep it fresh. Rotate your crops a little bit. And I think that's what this album serves to do. It gives people what they love, doesn't take away the things that they relate to, and it gives you a little something to hang on to until the next one. And they're just solid as fuck on writing a song. They know how to write a song that doesn't need a ton of bells and whistles. Just, again, Matt Reno, rock solid production, rock solid songwriting values, rock solid execution. You brought up Dirty Honey earlier, and that's what I was actually thinking about, where I'm like, I can't say that was bad. It wasn't bad, but it didn't blow me away with something I hadn't heard before. And that's something I need to work on, is not every album you listen to needs to completely blow your ass out and change the way you see the world. You have to be okay with, like, there's nothing new under the sun, right? That I'm fine with. It's just times like, we're going to go back to an old punching bag, Julian Baker, where I'm like, wow, you just kind of rested on the indie template this entire time, the indie girl template. It's like, how come, what is it about Phoebe Bridgers, not to compare members of Boy Genius, but how come Phoebe Bridgers is able to do such memorable stuff? How come Lucy Dacus is able to do something completely different from Phoebe Bridgers that is notable and stands on its own? And then poor, sweet Julian Baker is standing in the middle, not really taking any chances. So I think the difference I'm keying in on is not taking any chances is fine if you've got a solid foundation. I don't know if I've ever heard a Julian Baker song that I've liked. Spoon, plenty that I've liked. So if Spoon is not going to try to, change the way that I think about life, the universe, and everything, that is fine, because I will enjoy the 38 minutes that I spend with an album like this. I'll go ahead and say stream it.
Yes, absolutely. I will agree. I will say stream it. I think if you like just good rock and roll music, you're going to like this album. I mean, there's really not anything about it to not like. Again, maybe it'll blow your socks off. It didn't for us, but by no means does that mean it was a bad album. I think it's like you were saying, there's not everything can blow your hat off. Some of the stuff has to be kind of in the middle. But if you played this song or this album for somebody back in like 1967, it'd probably blow their minds.
Oh yeah.
So it's just a matter of, like, as time goes on, the level of expectation gets higher and higher and higher. And you have those albums that go so far past that level of expectation that help bring everybody up to that level. And that then becomes the new baseline. I think that's just how things go. Not everybody can be the leading edge.
Not everyone can be Frank Zappa and create these intricate musical movements all within one song. Got him right in.
You did it.
Oof.
You did it.
I gotta quit leaving him till the end. It's getting spooky. Tanner and I have been hammering Chic Your Booty. That's gonna to spoil it for you guys. We may or may not be doing another episode of On the Record soon.
Okay.
It may or may not be a Zappa album.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, it's about time that he got something more than a mention.
He got my singles video of the documentary, but I had to control myself. I'm like, I'm going to do a whole series called Zappa U, and it's going to be me bloviating about every album up to, like, I had some arbitrary cutoff where I was like, I literally cannot cover everything or I'll die an old man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, all jokes aside, as a Frank Zappa guy, he gets spoiled on, like, wow, you really subverted my expectations on this one. Not everybody has to do that. I don't want to call this album adequate because that sounds dismissive. It's enjoyable. It was not a chore to listen to. It didn't need to be a paradigm shift to be worth your time, to be worth my time, to elicit multiple listens. And you're exactly right. It's a headphone album.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of people who are like, "Ugh, it's so much work to plug headphones into my phone and listen to music."
No, come on.
Like, you dumb bastard.
They're all Bluetooth now. Just get yourself a decent pair of Bluetooth headphones. They go on sale all the time. I think Beats just made their, like, top of the line headphones under $200. They were
wow.
$350. So, like, I imagine everything else is going to start dropping in price as well. Now, I'm not saying run out and buy Beats because I think you can do better for less money, but like just saying it's not an astronomical amount of money to give yourself a wonderful listening experience.
Yeah, I mean, I ran out for like $8. I bought the fucking lightning adapter for my phone so I can plug my Tascams into my phone and just flop down and rock out. Yep. So if you're out there and you're not listening, I get it. When you're cooking or something, Get yourself a nice little, Tanner and I both have the Bose Revolve, throws a lot of sound around, bassy, great stuff. Get yourself a nice little Bluetooth speaker for when you're cooking or tinkering or something like that. But for the love of God, when you're really trying to dive into an album, people, listen with your headphones on.
Yes.
Okay.
Listen with your headphones on and your heart wide open.
I love that. That is the new slogan of the podcast.
Well, I guess, we'll just do our little housekeeping items here and then call it a night. So make sure you go check out that YouTube. We are really trying to push that out, and so far it's going really well. You're going to start seeing reaction videos from me finally. So if you haven't gone already, make sure you go and check out the newest one. And I mentioned the band earlier. I'm going to let you find out who it is. I'm going to let the mystery be. But it's a band that I talked about earlier in this episode, and they came out with a new single, and you're going to hear me hear it. You're going to watch me hear it for the first time. So go check that out. We have the custom URL on YouTube. You'll find it by going through our Instagram, @Out on That Line. You just click the little link there. You'll find everything right there, actually. You'll find all of our podcast episodes, all the regular ones right here on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening right now. You could also just go to the YouTube to find those as well. But you'll also find on Twitter, if you want to get at us, you can do that through email, outonthatline@gmail.com. Get at us through that. Alex, was there anything else that you had this week?
I don't think I have anything left to say. I'm ready to dump out.
All right. Well, until next time.